Should we start with Henley's headlines?
Yes, please. Let's go.
All right. Well, the first one, Kim, is a doozy. I am going to do my best to explain this in as few words as possible. If you just heard me explain that I left Kim 27 minutes of voice notes, you might be doubting my abilities right now, but I'm going to do my best. All right. So we're going to start off with Tara Moore, 33 years old, a tennis player from Great Britain. She's been ranked as high as 145 in singles, 77 in doubles. She is suing the WTA for $20 million, saying that they failed to protect her from the dangers of contaminated meat in some locations throughout the world, specifically in her case, South America. So I'm going to give you a quick timeline, Kim, and then we can weigh in. So back in the spring of 2022, Tara Moore tested positive for 2 anabolic steroids, boldenone and nandrolone. By December of 2023, she was cleared of fault and negligence in an independent tribunal. Then the ITIA, the governing body in charge of the tennis anti-doping program, appealed that decision to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, or CAS. You've probably heard that if you're listening to this. And they upheld the appeal and suspended Moore for 4 years. And that judgment, that ruling, was given last July. So here we are today. Moore is suing the WTA, saying that they failed to protect her. Now, we can talk about the amount she's suing them for and everything that led up to this, but is it coincidence that this week we also became aware that Acapulco, the ATP event that's happening this week, has actually banned the presence of red meat from their tournament? I don't think so. So you see on the WTA side, and I believe Los Cabos has also done that in the past, where they have said, we're just taking meat off the table, no pun intended, to protect players from the potential presence of banned substances. So your takeaways, Kim, there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. And it's obviously for Tara Moore, it's a very disappointing situation to be a part of, right? And one of the things that I did find online when I was trying to get my timeline, because I felt like it was handled, it was taken care of. And then, I do think, or the ITIA, they based their conclusion or their decision on the fact that they said that the levels were too high to be contaminated through meat.
Right. Specifically of the nandrolone. Exactly. Yep.
If she is innocent, then how hard is it to test the meat, and how hard is it to go for like a check how much that has an impact on the body, and it's just a very frustrating situation. And the fact that she's suing the WTA, I don't know, did she try to sue the tournament? Was that, or, was that not a way to go about things? And is there a better, maybe a better option to try to sue is it also the ITIA that she's suing, right? And the WTA, or?
I think it's just the WTA, okay. I believe.
But it's it's such a very, very unfortunate and disappointing situation for every party. I know that the WTA, they try their absolute best when it comes to providing, making sure that all the tournaments and the tournament directors are aware of the risks and of the catering services that work for the tournaments. And I know that they're very, very involved in making sure what's important for the players, what's healthy, what should be available and whatnot. But yeah, when it comes to the quality of certain meats, and we've seen it before where, players get sick and whether it was from, vegetables that weren't washed, salad, we've heard it over and over again that, a few players get sick. And I don't think there's a lot that the WTA can do about those kind of things, but we'll see how this turns out. And, I just feel bad for Tara, if it is, because of that contaminated meat. It is a very, very sad situation, and that she gets punished for it is, just very, very unfortunate. And I hope, she can get something back from it. Will it be 20 million? I don't think so. But I remember a few years ago, I forget what year it was. Was it where Ginny Bouchard slipped in the US Open locker room and 2015 and ended up suing the USDA, and I guess they settled. There is definitely abilities to go about that and make these kind of injuries or these situations maybe feel a little bit better afterwards. But Jeannie is doing well again, and she's playing good on the pickleball tour and doing well and making finals there in the singles. So happy to see that she's has this new career outside of tennis.
Yeah, it's an interesting question just in terms of what the WTA should be doing to protect players. And has this become such a common occurrence that, okay, all South American or Central American tournaments are going to start saying, to be safe, we are just not going to have meat on the table, which again is an unintentional pun, but you do wonder if this is going to be a domino effect where a couple of events on the ATP tour are doing it. I don't know if the WTA has done this. I would love to do some research. I will report back. But if they haven't, will they consider doing it in the future? Because just last week, there were 3 players on the ATP tour who were cleared from fault or negligence. They tested positive for boldenone and blamed it on contaminated meat, and all 3 of them were cleared. So I do think the fact that CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, said, we agree with the ITIA that the amount of nandrolone in her system could not be explained by contaminated meat. You do wonder how much that is going to play into the outcome of this case.
Right. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll keep following this situation and see what will, and if we hear things on the WTA tour and behind the scenes, we can report on our weekly level podcast. But it's it'll be interesting, very interesting to see where this will go and what measurements the WTA will take.
All right, the next Henley's headline comes from Coco Gauff. And again, this was last week, and it was something that she said on court during her semifinal loss to Alina Svitolina. That was an incredible match. If you haven't seen it, go check out the highlights. But she looked over in the direction of her camp and she said, quote, "I've been doing everything you wanted for the last 6 months." And this was presumably directed at Gavin McMillan, her biomechanics coach, and her coach in general, who has obviously tried to make adjustments on the serve. And as Gil Gross so deftly broke down on his YouTube channel, he was explaining the fact that in the last 52 weeks, Coco has the highest double fault rate on the WTA Tour at 10%. To give that context, Yelena Ostapenko is next at 8%. And so that's, again, 1 out of every 10 serves is a double fault. And she is still managing to play incredibly high-level tennis. But gosh, you can just feel the frustration.
In our first episode, we had Ons Jabeur on, and she talked about, like, why is everybody talking about her serve and how she has a good serve? And that's the thing that I think people and the media and commentators at times too, like, there's so much focus on her serve right now that when she serves a double fault, everybody it jumps on it right away. And I think for her mentally, you can only kind of avoid it so much, right? That it is being looked at as a weakness, and it is at times, but she at times serves really good as well. And I think that's where, I'm very intrigued about the fact that why at times she, the double faults kind of build up. And a lot of times, if you hit a double fault when it's 15-all, 2-all in the first set, there's really no meaning. Like, there's no impact behind that. But if it happens at 4-all in the third, if it on break point down, or, on these important moments where there is added pressure. And I think Brad Gilbert, who worked with her, explained that in an interview when he sat down. I think it was on ESPN or something. He was in the broadcast studio, and he says, like, listen, we go out on court after a bad serving match, literally from the court to the practice court, and she won't miss a second serve. She'll hit every second serve. So a lot of times it's also, your mind, okay, there's that pressure of the score and everything, but also to be ready for the next shot, to be ready for the return. And I dealt with that a little bit, where it's not that I wasn't was hitting double faults, but I just was not getting the pace on my second serve that I had to have when I was playing somebody like Lindsay Davenport or Serena or Venus, Sharapova, like the hard hitters, because they will punish it right away. And so I would serve, but in my motion, I would already kind of retrieve a little bit and kind of collapse my chest down or pull my left arm down too soon. And I think at times that's what's happening with Coco a little bit as well. And it just, there's a few things to me. It's like the mental side of it, right? Where the focus and you start to doubt, your shot more and more, and it becomes, an obsession to try and fix it. But a lot of times working too hard on it can also kind of get into, the negative spiral and become an obsession in a way.
Yeah, one last note for me on this topic. I remember talking to Coco Gauff in press at the WTA finals last fall after a match that she won, but I think was well into the double digits in terms of double faults. And she was saying, I just kept going for more and more. And I said, what does that say about your personality, Coco, that you are struggling to get your serve in, and yet you are going for more and more. You are hitting it harder. You are going for more rotation. And she said, I guess I just feel like I always want to go big or go home. And I thought that was really telling, but also it makes you wonder, could she potentially shift that mentality for a match and just go for the serve that she knows she can get in just to build the confidence? It just made my wheels turn in terms of that's probably why she's as good as she is, because she has the go big or go home mentality. But also, are there points where you need to maybe shift that?
Yeah, I think there is. To really practice my kick serve, I remember my coach, Carl, throughout my career, when I wasn't feeling it, sometimes you just don't really feel, or the toss is off a little bit. He used to sit me on a little chair on the service line, and I literally had to do 50 kick serves where I wasn't moving. You take a lot, like the service motion is, the most complicated shot in our sport. And when you can take away some of the, the early steps, right, of the motion and just worry about kicking, like just the arm motion, forget about what's happening with your feet. Your brain kind of absorbs it and stores it. And it's made me, it made me just more confident putting in that kick serve and having the variety. And that's the thing that I think for Coco, it's going to take time. And it's all about like the communication that she has. Okay, we saw her get frustrated, which is totally fine, and I get the frustration, the disappointment in herself in the serve. I totally get it, but it's going to take time, and I think she's going to just keep having to put the time into it and the hours and a lot of times when it is that mental side of it, that is something that you can't practice, right? You can't say like, oh, let me get that feeling of, being a little bit tighter in my arm or worried about my next shot. You don't create that same kind of feeling and pressure in practice. And so she's, almost has to take those big matches like she had in the Dubai semifinal and really try to push and focus on, certain aspect. I always loved aiming on targets. I used to visualize targets during my match, even when they weren't there. And that really helped me a lot as well. So, there's a lot of things that they can do, but, sometimes less is more, I think, especially in this situation. I think it's so many people, and we're talking about it now too, right? Like it's so many people talk about it. And
I know.
And so I think sometimes in her situation, less is more.